Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Relationships. My name is Veronica Lynch, and I am the Outreach Awareness Specialist for the Domestic Abuse Project of Delaware County.
Hey, this is Nicole Powell. I'm the Community Education Manager for the Domestic Abuse Project of Delaware County. It's been a long day.
And, it's time
It's time to
to
get
get real.
real.
Nicole
Yeah,
and I have already gotten real this morning.
just a little bit. And so we're just going to get even more real as we dig a little bit deeper into how we see or hear about domestic violence in the media. So this is an interesting topic we've been wanting to discuss for a long time, actually kind of sparking the podcast
Right.
being created. And now we are actually picking apart some specific situations as of late that we want to discuss more because I'm not even going to call myself old school, but I'm learning. I don't know that much about what's going on in pop culture anymore because I feel so detached. And so the last thing I know is like Chris Brown and Rihanna. And that is so,
Right. That was years ago.
oh my gracious, it's like dead right now. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna just keep my mouth shut, my opinions
And
to
I'm
myself.
the exact opposite, where my family used to keep tabloids in the bathroom for people to read. So I know everything that there is pop culture, and I love it.
Yes. So thank you for keeping me above water
Right.
and and relevant. But I have done some research a little bit based off of what you've shared with me and also what other people actually, when we've been doing community conversations, someone had asked me about a couple that we can get into later, but
Right.
kick it off, ma'am.
Right. So the first thing that comes to mind when we think about domestic violence and celebrities and pop culture, I think the most recent and most publicized case is the case between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which has been a whirlwind. So when this
Mm-hmm.
case first came out, it was Amber Heard alleging that Johnny Depp was abusive to her throughout their marriage, physically, verbally, emotionally, all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then it came out, Johnny Depp said that it was vice versa. Amber Heard was now the abuser. And I think what is really interesting is how easy the public is to be swayed, right? A lot of the times when it is public figures and people are emotionally attached to things that they've done throughout their career, like everyone loves Johnny Depp, right? He's been a heartthrob. He's been in these staple movies that people love. So to hear that he might be a violent person, especially towards their partner, that's hard to digest. So it was easy for people to accept that Amber Heard must be the abuser, right? Because the person that they so appreciate and love could never do that. And I think that was a lot of the comments that I saw with this case was the minute that Amber Heard might be the abusive person, people were like, for sure, right? He's lying, she's lying about all the abuse. He's the one who was abused. While when she had to come up with evidence upon evidence upon evidence to even get people to slightly believe that he
Mm-hmm.
might be abusive. So I think that there's this, gender dynamic, but also how the role that the public plays and the opinion of the public and how, victims of domestic violence are seeing that. I think that's a crazy, an intense topic.
Yeah, which is crazy because we put forth so much effort in terms of encouraging individuals to revision what healthy and unhealthy relationships look like, meaning that,
Right.
there can be male and female perpetrators in a toxic or unhealthy relationship. And given the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it was so easy to skew the public's perspective of who, in fact, would be considered the quote unquote victim or survivor
Right.
in this relationship, is like, wow, that
Yeah.
was that was a little bit too easy. But again, it, like you said, when we as a public see that, it then encourages victims to remain silent because they're not going to believe me, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And then you often see social movements or
Mm-hmm.
campaigns that we are very passionate about, like Hear Me Out, engaging men and boys, kind of
Mm-hmm.
used against you,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of times we're like, well, I thought we believed that. It's like, and we do. And no one's discounting either. We don't know Johnny Depp or Amber Heard, right? We are also the public taking this in. I don't have an opinion on this. I think that abuse looks great, like different for everyone. And there's also such things as reactive abuse. So there could have
Right.
been one person, let's say it was Johnny Depp being the abuser and then Amber Heard also being abusive because that was the dynamic that was set. I think when you're a high profile celebrity, that plays a big role into it because you also have careers at stake. And we saw that when Johnny Depp was first accused. You know, he was dropped from movies. But then he's still in the Dior campaign. I don't know if can we say labels in our podcast. I know he was in that
it's
campaign.
their reality, yeah.
Right. So, and then people were pushing for Amber Heard to be dropped out of all her movie franchises. And she's still facing a lot of backlash, especially because they just had their libel case go through and Amber Heard won. Johnny Depp was suing her for saying that she lied about everything and ruined his reputation. And the court agreed that Amber Heard had enough evidence to support and to put these claims out, and she won.
I think it's just crazy how he really just flipped it for himself to be the victim to save face. And that's even the worst part too, when you have an individual have the courage to finally speak up about their experience and it turns back on them and it's like, but actually you're the one like that is so traumatizing and hurtful.
And we see it every day.
You see it every day. So just like a little context, even for our agency, like we're like a first come, first serve type of place. And so say, for instance, you have an individual who comes in wanting to get a PFA, which is a protection from abuse order, otherwise known as a restraining order to some places. But for PA, we have PFAs. And you have their partner or whomever they're filing the PFA against come in shortly right after them wanting to do the same thing or seek the same service. It's like, we are not here to make the decision about who's right and who's wrong. We're here to serve and support and empower our survivors and victims for coming in and seeking services. And even in the court, it's just really hurtful and hard to see. And in a sense, we're kind of like stuck in the middle because we have to do our jobs and serve the person who has come in first. And I mean, and we hear it all the time, even on our hotline, how people are like, oh, well, they filed a PFA against me before I could file against them. And again, we're not in their relationship. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp and these celebrities, at the end of the day, they're human.
Exactly.
Right. So they deal with real life things, even though they make a lot of money. And like we say, you know, domestic violence doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter how much money you make, how many degrees you may have, any position in life, regardless of socioeconomic status or background, anyone is susceptible to being victimized or even being an abusive or toxic partner in a relationship such as.
And we've seen it where people are victimized and then in the next relationship, you know, because they haven't taken the steps to heal, they do become an abusive partner, right? Because it's that matter of having lost power and control in the past and wanting to gain it moving forward. And we know that that's what domestic violence is about, gaining and maintaining power and control. So it could be a trauma response, right? We've lost it. And so now we're seeking it wherever we can get, or we just want it, right? Sometimes people don't even have to go through trauma. They just want to they just want power and control. But I think it's also interesting how, this is also me because I do love pop culture things, but Johnny Depp is a long-term friend of Marilyn Manson. And Marilyn Manson right now has over 15 accusations of sexual and domestic violence against him.
Like today?
Like as in, yes, today. And he's currently being like charged with sexual assault from like the Los Angeles police. I think he just recently turned himself in. And over 15 of his like girlfriends, like that they said that they were girlfriends, you know, came out and said he was like physically and sexually abusive. So you do, like, I'm an outsider, right? I don't know anything. And we tell this to our clients. We don't know the relationship any more than you do, right? Like, you know everything if you are in this relationship. We can only go off what we hear and the details that we see.
Right.
I'm only going off what I see on the internet. And from what it looks like, it's like things are crazy. You know, this seems like you guys are high power people and you might get used to having that power. And so you might seek it out in your relationships and might demand it. So it's interesting, but it is interesting the public's response when it's somebody that they like. They don't want to hear that they've done bad things.
I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but Marilyn Manson scares me. So
he is scary.
I don't doubt that he's been a little bit of an aggressor.
Right. He has a song about murdering women. And people, when all this stuff came out, they were like, was he actually telling
like, even
us something?
Knowing who he is, were you not, like, was that not a red flag for you? Because that's a red flag for me. Like,
the
what?
man talks about drinking blood. Oh,
like, what encouraged this song to be? Okay, I just have questions. I have thoughts. I want to know.
Right.
You know, can we do that before we, go any further?
Yeah. Can we call his mom?
Yeah, just to kind of
Yeah.
see like what fuels your fire and your passion to write such lyrics
Yeah.
about such harsh things.
So you have
But
to worry, like, this is the company you keep.
yes, and again, judging a book by its cover, not trying to. However, this
Right.
is again, we are, like I said, we're part of the public. We're only getting our information based off the internet. We do not know these people
Yeah.
personally or individually. However, do we know people who are in unhealthy relationships? Yep, that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
However, what I will, because even which is an extremely hard conversation right now, especially in the Black community, is with Bill Cosby, right?
Right.
A whole other topic for another podcast. However, I just want to say this one thing. It is so hard, I think, in the beginning, and even more so now, too, because you have him being supported by such a beautiful individual like Felicia Rashad.
Right. Right.
And they're like, this whole cancel culture,
Yeah.
I don't have words anymore about it. I didn't know it was anyway, but the whole cancel culture, like, it's Felicia Rashad, like, and
Wanting her to
again,
be fired from her job. Yeah.
yeah, and she has done so. And this is even we're talking about a supporter, not even the person who is being,
Mm-hmm.
the abused or perpetrator of the
Yeah.
situation, like Bill Cosby. However, Felicia Rashad, I mean, like, she worked with this man. She doesn't
Right.
know him as an intimate partner or as an abuser or someone who would be um, able or willing to assault another woman. And growing up for Black people is like, well, we see this man as this household name and this
Right.
father to a lot of people from their home. It's like, there's no way, but we don't know that, right? We
Yeah.
don't know him outside of literally the television
Exactly.
or the character of being Cliff Huxtable.
Right.
And that's not our reality. That's not his reality, nor is that the reality of the people who were victimized by him.
Exactly.
I
Yeah, it's so
digress.
complicated because we often put public figures on this pedestal because we get so much happiness from it and joy, right? When you watch these shows and you
Yeah.
feel good, you often associate them as these characters that they're playing, but that's fake, right? It's scripts on a page or it's lines on a page. They're going in front of cameras and they're acting. And, it can be really hard to break that apart.
For sure.
And, and this also goes in dynamics when people know abusers in their personal life. It can be really hard to wrap your head around that a person that you genuinely love and, whether it's your family or a friend, behaving like that. And that's a lot of times why victims won't come forward because they've been told, well, he's such a good person or they're such a good person. I couldn't see them doing that. So are you sure? Are you sure you're thinking of it the right way? Are you sure you're not misconstruing it? So we see that a lot of like that gaslighting there because we
Yeah.
do know different sides to people. We don't get 100% all the time. So it makes it really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's make it personal. It makes our job even harder as
Right.
advocates for survivors of domestic violence, because what we always try to enlighten people about, like, domestic violence is a very modern term and movement. Like, we've only been around since the 70s.
Right.
And that's not a long time. And it's already hard enough to encourage people to speak up about their experience, to seek support and services. And even more so now, as much of an impact as Bill Cosby has had on the Black community, and like even me personally, considering I went to school,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, like, it's hard to support that and still know his actions and the
Right.
ways in which he has impacted a lot of women.
Yeah.
And you want women to speak up, and men, but you want individuals to speak up. And when you have these types of occurrences where the script is flipped or they're not really being reprimanded for their actions,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's a whole nother silencing that is just painful
Right.
for us as advocates for the job that we do. And that's why we even have a hard time as a team getting into schools, right? Middle schools and high schools, because they think that this thing isn't happening.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, again, like, toxicity and abusive behaviors is on a spectrum. And we try to teach
Mm-hmm.
people what that is and what it looks like based off of the power and control, will, and dynamics. And we just really hope that it does not continue to hold people silence to their
Right.
experiences and unable to really heal.
And even when you think too, we're going back like in a celebrity standing, non-disclosure agreements everywhere.
Dude.
So the cases that we're talking about are only the cases that NDAs don't exist in. So, that's why it's so rare to find. Like, if you Google celebrity domestic violence, like, you're not going to find a lot because we know that these things exist. And we know that people are literally being gagged to not speak out about their experiences. And that's why, Me Too, Time's Up was so big.
Right.
People were
Right.
breaking their NDAs and, like,
Right.
possibly being sued for, like,
Right.
tons of money. But, you do have to question the numbers that you find online because of how being a celebrity works. Your brand, your image matters, and so hiding those moments is really important.
Yeah, I mean, we can have a whole part two because you got R. Kelly and that whole zhuzh. Like, I
Right.
remember going out Community, and when that documentary hit, like I was like, y'all, we cannot talk
Right.
about this because we don't need another hour, and I only have an hour, and I need my hour.
Yeah.
Talk about this, and so you're right. The financial piece that goes along with the silencing,
Yeah.
is even more of a barrier.
So I'm sure this libel lawsuit that Johnny Depp's pushing forward was a way to silence her, right? If I'm suing you for millions of dollars, like, I'm putting you through this court process, I'm making it really hard for you to speak out anymore. And now we have to go through the court and you have to and it was in London, so you have to fly to London all the time. So
It's draining.
Yeah.
And outrageous. So we got Johnny Depp flipping the script on Amber Heard, and although females can definitely be abusive to their partners, however, female identifying individuals can be abusers. However, we have a lot more of male celebrities
Right.
who are.
We are not assigning blame to anyone.
Nope.
We don't know.
Can't do it. Won't
we
do
don't
it.
know.
No,
It's not our place
at all.
We are just talking about Nicole and Veronica.
That's all. But I will say, so a little bit of the research I did, again, I did a Facebook Live with Making a Change group in Chester, PA,
Right.
amazing organization. And the individual, Corey Long, he was like, have you heard about the Meg the Stallion situation? I was like, what?
Right.
Again, I'm not like, I mean, my understanding of DV was Chris Brown and Rihanna, and of course I Tina Turner. That's all I got. And so when this situation happened with Meg the Stallion, I had to do my research because I only know but so much. So Meg the Stallion and Tory Lanez apparently were in a relationship, and she was shot in her foot, and he shot her in her foot. When I tell you I did some digging. I don't do digging, but I saw the footage of them being arrested, legitimately blood dripping from her foot as she's limping, getting out of the car with the LAPD. And this woman had the extreme audacity to speak about her experience of past abusive relationships. And I mean audacity in the most positive way possible, because she flat out said on Instagram Live, kudos to her, she had a mugshot that surfaced, and she was discussing how this abusive relationship she thought was fun and toxic and cute in the moment. But it was extremely toxic and unhealthy, and the mugshot surfaced because she was just in the moment and was caught by the police physically assaulting her partner, who she just found out had a baby.
Wow.
And so then she was arrested, even though he had been physically and I'm sure emotionally and verbally abusive towards her in the past. And as a Black woman, she said he never hurt. In that moment, the police asked, did he hit you or hurt you? And she said no. And then he flipped the script on her and was like, well, yeah, she hit me. Sir, I'm here still trying to save our relationship and protect you, even though you've done me so wrong. And she was real transparent and said, did I, was I unhealthy? Yep. Was he unhealthy? Absolutely. Was it fun? Mm-hmm. Is it right? Absolutely not. So she's telling people not to do it.
Right. Because we hear that a lot of people, thinking toxic equals passion.
Yes.
And there are people, we all love, I think people get, you get bored in your life and you go into work and you go home, blah, blah. So you want some drama. So, and where do we seek that? You and I laughing over dating apps, right? It's fun, but that's how people, I think they seek it out. And then, but when it comes down to it, you know, when our physical, mental, and emotional health is at
Yeah.
risk, we really have to reevaluate and, you know, decide what is the best for us.
Yeah. Yeah, toxicity is not attractive, contrary to popular belief, and it is a popular belief that
Yeah. People like jealousy too.
jealousy isn't cute. Because even I read an article about Meg the Stallion in a former relationship, and I think they were like in a parking lot or parking garage or whatever, and her partner was like yelling at her, and their friend came out and said, "Oh, he must really love you."
Right. Right. Do you think that might be because I think this goes back to what we're saying maybe with our Hear Me Out campaign, like men and boys are not encouraged to show emotion. So when they are, right, they're angry, they're yelling, that they're like, oh wow, look at that. There's
Yes.
that sign, right? That must be love if he's willing to express himself like that.
Because
I think
otherwise, he
that's
doesn't know how to express his emotion.
right. And then, you know, we as women were like, you know, I just don't want to be yelled at.
That's all.
You know, you can tell me you love me. I love you. In a nice,
See how easy that was?
calm, comforting way.
Yeah. There's been something on Instagram or whatever lately, and my best friend sent it to me of how I don't know if it was like I don't know how men are like in relationships. Basically, long story short, it's pretty much explaining and breaking down what emotional barriers men face in relationships because of how they are not taught to express and share their emotions. And like you said, we do our hardest work in the month of June to encourage men and male identifying individuals to know what masculinity looks like healthy manhood looks and feels like. Because as a society, we have a problem with separating or maybe connecting gender to emotion, which shouldn't be a thing because we're all humans. Go figure. So, you know what? All humans are the same, regardless of race, belief system. Like, we all have emotions, we all have tear ducts for a reason. Use them. It's okay. Otherwise,
Right.
enjoy
You
it.
need it. I think this science thing, people forget like tears. Like when you cry, there's like chemicals in your tears that are made to make you feel better. And like you absorb it. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
You're crying for a reason.
Yeah.
Your body wants you to do it.
Yeah.
So you just gotta let it happen.
And that's okay. No one will judge you. I would judge you if you don't cry, especially like if someone passed away, you don't cry, I'm concerned.
You're like, did you put sand in your eyes today to dry them out? Like, how did that happen? And the next, like, you know, this was like I didn't know this. This is switching gears a little bit. I didn't know this rapper. I didn't like. I don't really listen, like, you know, listen to his music. I think how you say his name is Xxtenacion,
Go for it.
Xxtenacion.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope. But I do, but
Well,
I don't. Yeah.
right. I never listened to his music, and I never even heard of him until after he died. So he was like shot and killed. And there was really big controversy over how the public should react to his death because a lot of people really upset. You know, he was 21. You know, he's this up and coming, you know, musician. I know like Kanye West like put out like condolences after his death, saying like it was really sad that someone with so much potential was like lost so soon. But then you also have the opposite side of people being like he has such a horrific history of abusing his girlfriend, putting her in the hospital multiple times, trying to drown her, trying to like, you know, threaten to like cut her to a point where she like passes out because the knife is so close to her. You know, there's instances of him threatening like sexual assault with weapons. Um, and of course, right, and they're documented. There's like hospitals, you know, the girlfriend had come out and said these things. So it was hard because you had people being like, well, I guess we shouldn't be sad because he's dead, right? Because he did all these things. And then you have other people being like, well, that was a mistake he made. He was young. You know, he did look at all the good things he did with his music and, you know, all the people he reached with his music. And so it's crazy how easy it is for people to excuse abuse as a mistake. And so we see it with when you have young college like athletes being brought forward with sexual assault. You have people being like, well, this was a mistake, right? He made one mistake. And you have to question how do we define a mistake then? To me, a mistake is, oh, sorry, I wore the wrong shoes to my outfit, blah, 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 something small. If you physically harming a person how can that be a mistake? That is an active choice that you made. So where does the line get drawn for people?
But mistakes aren't to happen repeatedly.
Exactly. The patterns.
I saw the damage he did to this young lady's face.
Right. Yes.
And him asking her which weapon
mm-hmm.
she wanted to be sexually assaulted with.
Right. Resulting in her fainting from fear.
That's not a mistake. That is done with intention and purpose to do harm.
Yes, to cause that fear. And we know that's the standing of to take legal action. Fear for your life is usually the basis of obtaining PFAs.
She did try to pursue legal action, but then he threatened her.
Right.
And fans also threatened her, the audacity they had. And that's not a positive audacity. That is none of your business. First of all, you are not in their relationship. You can't threaten someone, especially if they're already feeling like they're in harm's way. Why would you threaten to do more harm? And what would you do?
We see that with family members of...
That's true.
When we have clients come in, it's not only the intimate partner, but their family. And it makes it more complicated because of how PFAs work and the definition of domestic violence being an intimate partner or family member. So when you have outside parties, like their friends or, things like we see this on a smaller level, but now imagine hundreds of thousands of people.
I mean, we can take it personal. I'm not defending anyone's wrongdoing.
Right.
Especially domestic violence. I work in the field. No.
And that's just because, we as a society have a history of telling victims, you're lying.
Yeah.
You're lying. So, and now you're making this person look bad. So now I'm going to do this to you.
It's the pattern of misbehavior for me. And there was also a quote unquote confession recorded by an acquaintance of his where he was like, she already know I'm crazy. I've stabbed 8 people and I don't care. I have no remorse for it. And I will kill her. She's afraid of me and she should be.
Right.
Is it because he's dead we feel sad or we want to
exactly.
But even so.
I just remember seeing the arguments back and forth on social media of people being like, well, we shouldn't be happy somebody's dead. Right. And I'm not happy anyone's dead. I don't know the man. I have no feelings about it. But we also cannot, because death does not erase bad behavior.
Correct.
We can mourn a person and also acknowledge the wrongdoings.
I bet ain't nobody gonna feel bad if O.J. Simpson passed away anytime soon.
Right.
And that is that even old school now?
No, because the crazy thing about that is that I see people on TikTok will post videos of them being at a restaurant and they're like, O.J. Simpson's here at this restaurant.
That's weird.
And I'm like, okay.
I will say the documentary they did, was it Made in America? Was really powerful. And granted, I was really young when that situation happened. I was a baby.
Yeah.
And I vaguely remember the outcome, but that docuseries Made in America really put it in a perspective that was ouch.
Right. I think too with, mass media, when we have such quick access to this information, it's not now, right? That happened years ago. And now we're information's still coming out, and we're seeing things. And then it's also because the Kardashians are linked to that case. So it makes it because the Kardashians' father, their father was on his legal team.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have, it's the celebrity of the case is on such a high magnitude, but then you have Netflix constantly putting out docuseries about true crime. And the most recent, I don't know if the most recent, but there was the murder a few years ago. A husband murdered his wife and 2 daughters and then went on TV saying that they're missing. And, it comes out that he actually murdered them because she threatened to take the children away when she found out he was cheating. And so when people have access to this and to the entirety of the crime, they see the doorbell footage that's been recorded and they're able to make their own opinions because of the interviews and piecing, like, it changes how things work for victims. Yeah. Because now it's not just, me going and reporting my case and just being a one-on-one thing. Now, it's public knowledge. I can Google this stuff and I can find the case dates and I can find people's charges. So it changes how people, want to come forward.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to people having a higher power as relates to money.
Right.
So we even see it here. You have individuals who are like, they have money or they know people and it's not worth going through court, going through legal proceedings because I'm going to lose every time. Again, prime example, like with Bill Cosby, these celebrities like Johnny Depp and even R. Kelly, even O.J. Simpson, like they have money.
And can afford legal teams who will work 24/7 for them. Because if it was anyone else, you have, like with Bill Cosby, would the time and the attention to detail of the wording really have been considered?
No, ma'am.
So, that stuff truly matters.
It does. And again, it hurts victims who are suffering in silence.
Right.
And their families and their children who are witnessing it, unfortunately, or even impacted by it in general. So even with the stuff with O.J. Simpson that happened years ago, like social media wasn't a thing. What really touched me, I guess, I don't know if touched is what I want to use, but it's happening, is the fact that like in this current, at the time when I watched it, like we were still in the climax of the Black Lives Matter movement. And for the simple fact that like, this is just the reality, this man got off only because he was Black, oddly enough, which is not usually the scenario, which is why it was such a big thing. And it was like, this is why this happened. And they had jurors there saying, oh yeah, simply because he's Black. Done. Ooh.
Yeah.
I encourage you to watch it if you haven't already.
I will.
I think it's 5 episodes. They're pretty long.
I think my parents were watching it when it came out and everything because they were watching the case, when it was happening.
And you're like, dang, it's just like, okay, now I see. You see a lot. As an advocate, he definitely did it. And then as now a Black woman in this day and age, that's tough. I can't even, it's just hard.
Right. It is hard. It is
so hard with the intersections of being an African-American woman. Right.
So then the question is, how, if it was a perfect world, right? Nicole and Veronica are leading everything. Yeah. We are crushing it. How would we want to talk about domestic violence in the media? What language would we want to use? I know what language we do use on a daily basis as educators, but it's different when you're a person in power.
I always the same thing because I think it's even more prevalent because you have, again, these finances, there's a lot of gaslighting, you have a lot of influence, and you have a lot of people influencing you and your decisions. And like, us, domestic violence is not the language I would use.
Yeah.
Toxic is my thing.
Yeah, right.
Because people resonate with that a lot more. Even we prefer like healthy and unhealthy, but even that doesn't resonate with people. If I use the word toxic, they're like, huh.
Right.
Or power and control too. It's like, well, who has the control over the money?
Exactly.
Over where you go, over who you talk to, over like what you all do. They're like, oh, when we put it that way, exactly. How I would spin it in the media is, controlling behaviors. Again, lack of emotional empathy or connection, rather, or expression.
Right.
And I remember growing up, like rap was like, why are they so angry? At the time, they were angry about social issues, which makes sense. And now, I don't know. I don't know why Tory Lanez felt the need to shoot Megan Thee Stallion in the
Right.
foot, bro. Like,
And then you have the right, and then you have the public responses making jokes because of the height difference between the two of them.
but he's in their reality, in their perspective, and I don't know them, but I'm just assuming he's a man, she's a woman.
Right.
Period.
Right.
They're both, you know, very famous, very wealthy.
Right.
And they have a lot at stake. And again, like you said, the idea of protecting the Black woman, even the Black woman feeling the need to protect the Black man, like that's a lot of pressure.
It is. Definitely. Definitely. Like we can't ignore how, right, you said like they're humans. We can't ignore how race, gender, and systems play a role in these just because they are celebrities.
Right. And the LAPD and Black people have a long-standing
right
reputation that really makes this even more of a challenge.
Exactly. If I was like writing these headlines, right, like I think the biggest thing you brought up is like human connection, empathy. A lot of times when you read it, right, it's just straight facts, and so it's easy for people to be like, oh, that's crazy, you just like move on and keep scrolling. But when you are the person experiencing it, and you have that lack of like connection, and you're seeing the facts about you be portrayed in a certain way, why would you come forward ever again? So I think that's really important for people to realize, like, this stuff isn't just for the fun of getting likes or to get clicks on your headline. Like, these are real people's lives, and it is important that these things are shared so people know that they can come forward and reach out to an agency and see who can help them. But when we're just splattering people's trauma around, people get desensitized to it and they don't care.
I think I like what you said too. I think really you have to just bring it home, because I feel like a lot of people resonate with this but don't want to admit it.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are a lot of Meg Thee Stallions out there, a lot of Amber Heards, a lot of Johnny Depps.
Yeah.
And I think if you put it in perspective, like if this has happened to you, how would you feel? Yeah.
How would you? And we think about that, when people ask, like, how can you do this work all the time? Like, you do it so what's like, well, how would you? I just treat people if this was me,
right,
this is the type of person I would hope to meet if I came to a place.
Or if this was my friend or a loved one.
Right.
How would I want them to get supported or be supported in their experience if I can't personally do it? Because as we both know, we can't help our friends and family who are in
boundaries
relationships. Boundaries. But we know people who can. It just can't be us.
Exactly. And so we just put the energy out there that if this were, we know that these are people's friends and we know that they're their family. And so we'll treat them with the respect that they deserve.
Yeah.
And you would just hope that the rest of the world would do it too. But unfortunately,
just treat people how you want to be treated, guys. That's it. That's all.
It's that simple. What goes around comes around.
Ooh, come on, karma.
Yeah. I believe in karma. Okay. Because I feel like, I don't know. Maybe it's Mercury in retrograde or something's in retrograde. But
how
I'm
long
just
is
like,
that gonna last? Because you've been
years.
No,
I think it was until the 29th. But then something else went to retrograde. I don't know. It's just easy for me to excuse bad things happening to me. I'm like, oh man, the stars are not aligned for me today. But I think, and then I guess this really comes down to how can we encourage people to hold conversations with their friends and family when these cases do come out in the media?
I would just encourage people to really understand and have a conversation on all perspectives of this.
Yes.
Like, it's okay to say, I support this, or this is how I feel. Again, I'm open and honest and saying it's hard to view Bill Cosby as an abuser. Or, like, it's hard.
Yeah.
But I also don't want anyone to feel like they can't speak up if it happens to them.
Exactly.
Exactly. And you have to just get all perspectives out, and it's okay. And also educate yourself. That's the big part. Educate yourself about it, or even the situation in general, because again, we're only getting this like by third, fifth hand at this point.
Yeah.
So just be respectful and supportive and understanding. And it's okay to agree to disagree. That's my thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if you see this case and it's a person that you respect, you respect their work, also realize they are more than the movies that they're in. And there's
Yeah.
we are all complicated people. And,
Right.
we have to we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And also, I would push forward if you want to educate yourself. There's this really cool podcast called Relationships, and where we break this stuff down. You go on our Facebook and find out everything about domestic violence and dating violence. Any questions that you have, everything can be there. You can find that at Depp Delco. You can always call a domestic violence hotline wherever is nearest you. Our number is 610-565-4590. It's 24/7. You can always call and just ask any questions that you have, because it's important just to talk it out.
Yeah, and legit, if there's anyone who you may know, if you yourself are not experiencing any unhealthy relationship, please give our hotline a call. If we can't help you, we know someone who can. We're here to support and listen, if nothing else. And please, like Veronica said, follow us on all of our social media platforms and subscribe to our podcast, please. And educate yourself. And we're happy to also receive any comments or questions, even thoughts about what other conversations you'd like to hear from us.
Right. And don't forget
to keep it real. Until next time. Bye.
Yeah.